What new developments have been made in the solar system? Why is this an important question? What is next? The present solar cycle is becoming more intense. Although the top of this cycle is not likely to arrive for another 1 to 3 years. It was anticipated that solar cycle 25 would be lower than average. Nevertheless, some scientists now believe that it could potentially be among the most active cycles since record-keeping began in the 1700s. The activity of sunspots and solar flares, both of which have the potential to interfere with Earth's communications and electrical systems, is expected to increase until reaching a peak between the years 2023 and 2025. In today's video, we will discuss the sun's solar flare with its upcoming peak of sunspot. Before we get into the main question, let's try to figure out what is a solar cycle. Solar cycle. The magnetic field of the sun passes through a cycle that lasts for around 11 years on average. And this period is referred to as the solar cycle. The sun is a massive sphere composed of electrically charged, superheated gas. When this charged gas flows, it creates a strong magnetic field because of its motion. The magnetic field surrounding the sun passes through a cycle that is referred to as the solar cycle. About once every 11 years, the sun's magnetic field does a complete 180-degree flip. This indicates that the sun's north pole and south pole will trade locations at some point in the future. After that, it takes approximately another 11 years for the north and south poles of the sun to switch places once more. The activity that occurs on the surface of the sun, such as sunspots, which are brought on by the magnetic fields of the sun, is influenced by the solar cycle. The amount of activity on the surface of the sun fluctuates in response to changes in the magnetic fields. Counting the number of sunspots is one method that can be used to follow the solar cycle. A solar minimum, often known as the time when the sun has the fewest sunspots, marks the beginning of a solar cycle. Solar activity, as measured by the number of sunspots, is seen to rise with time. The solar maximum occurs around the middle of the solar cycle and refers to the point in time when the sun has the greatest number of sunspots. As the cycle comes to a conclusion, it gradually returns to its minimal level, after which a new cycle begins. During the course of a solar cycle, the sun is also more likely to experience large eruptions, such as solar flares and coronal mass ejections. These eruptions release significant amounts of material and energy into space in the form of explosive bursts. This action has the potential to have consequences for Earth. For instance, eruptions can result in lights in the sky, which are referred to as aurora, and can interfere with radio communications. Extreme eruptions have the potential to disrupt power infrastructures across the planet. At the peak of certain cycles, there is an abundance of sunspots and activity. During other cycles, there may be a very low number of sunspots and very little activity. The ability of scientists to accurately anticipate the strength and duration of solar cycles is the subject of ongoing research and development. These predictions can help them forecast what is known as space weather, which refers to the circumstances of the sun. Well, do you like what you are seeing so far? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Keep watching because you don't want to miss the end. Forecasting the solar cycle can assist scientists in protecting radio communications on Earth, in addition to helping to ensure the safety of national aeronautics and space administration satellites and humans in space. The lifespan of satellite electronics can be shortened when they are exposed to solar activity. When working outside of the International Space Station, astronauts are exposed to radiation, which can pose a risk to their health. If researchers anticipate an active period in the sun's cycle, the satellites can be put into a safe mode, and the spacewalks that astronauts are scheduled to perform can be postponed. Solar cycle 25. Early indicators suggest that we might be in for a roller coaster ride in terms of space weather over the next few years. As the sun moves closer to its next solar maximum, its surface becomes more agitated with an increased number of sunspots. Each sunspot has the potential to unleash solar flares and coronal mass ejections, which can cause disruptions to Earth's electrical and communication systems. During a portion of the 11-year solar cycle that scientists have been studying since the middle of the 1700s, the sun will reach its solar maximum, also known as the moment at which sunspot activity will be at its most extreme. The previous solar maximum, which occurred in 2013 to 2014 and was quite subdued, and experts had projected that solar cycle 25, which is currently ongoing, will also have a quiet top. This cycle, however, is already exceeding estimates for activity and may perhaps be the most intense time we've seen on the Sun since record-keeping began. The next maximum could be a year or more away. But it's already well on its way to surpassing those expectations. As the Sun approaches its maximum activity in 2025, solar activity is expected to continue to intensify, which will have repercussions not just for people and technology on Earth but also for satellites and astronauts in space. Solar Cycle 25 kicked off in 2019, and it is expected to reach its highest point of sunspot activity between 2023 and 2025. After that, it will begin to decline and reach its solar minimum approximately 5 years later, at which point the Sun will likely appear completely blank and will be absent of sunspots for a period of time. After that, the pattern repeats itself. Predictions at the beginning of Solar Cycle 25. At the beginning of Solar Cycle 25, there was a lack of consensus among forecasters over the course of this cycle. The official forecast that was distributed by National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and National Aeronautics and Space Administration for the year 2020 anticipated a cycle that would be lower than usual, comparable to Cycle 24. However, not all of the specialists shared the same opinion. A study was led by Scott McIntosh from the National Center for Atmospheric Research and was published in the journal Solar Physics around the same time as the other study. The Sun's activity in terms of sunspots and solar flares considerably increased during the first half of the year 2022, with some of the most powerful flares observed in a number of years being among them. Even if the expected maximum is not for a few more years, it would appear that things are moving in the direction of McIntosh's prediction of a more active solar cycle peak. According to the findings of a recent study conducted in Russia, this solar cycle has the potential to be one of the most active on record. The study also says that the peak of solar activity may arrive as early as the 2023. This dispute highlights how much more there is to learn about the behavior of the Sun, because we do not have a fundamental understanding of the process that drives sunspot cycles. Scientists have had a difficult time making accurate predictions regarding the duration and intensity of sunspot cycles. Awareness of how this cycle is repeated could be beneficial to the cultivation of that understanding. Nevertheless, doing so poses a risk of disrupting our society on a scale that has never quite been seen before. If the forthcoming solar maximum lives up to its potential to set a new record, it will arrive at a point in time when the human presence in orbit and the degree to which we rely on satellite communications have both expanded significantly. A lengthy geomagnetic storm of moderate power was responsible for the loss of a number of SpaceX's Starlink satellites at the beginning of this year, as confirmed by the company. Previous solar maximums were also responsible for wreaking havoc on Earth and having a significant impact on the electrical grid. However, very nothing has been done over the past 2 decades to strengthen these systems or build in redundancies. There is one possible glimmer of hope, at least for some researchers in the scientific community. Even if this solar maximum causes a temporary disruption to our electrical and communication systems, it will also provide breathtaking auroral displays. Explaining sunspots. It is essential to be aware of the fact that our understanding of the processes that take place inside the Sun is limited at best. It is believed that the solar magnetic field is produced by a dynamo located inside the star. A dynamo is a revolving, convecting, and electrically conducting fluid that transforms kinetic energy into magnetic energy, thereby generating a magnetic field that extends out into space around the Sun. If this is the case, then what generates sunspots? However, according to the models that are now available, they are connected to the rotation of the Sun. The equator of the Sun rotates at a quicker rate than its poles. Sunspots are short-lived, locally concentrated areas of intense magnetic fields that are caused when straight magnetic field lines that run longitudinally are pulled along with the rotation of the Sun. This causes the magnetic field lines to become stretched and eventually tangled. So, that's it for today's video. What are your thoughts on our video? Please hit us in the comments section and subscribe to our channel for future updates. Thank you so much for watching.